Welcome back to CryptosRus. I'm George. We're all George. So welcome to another market open stream. The bell is about to ring. And today, the U.S. market isn't looking so good. Another bank that may be failing. That is why we're seeing such weakness. But you know what? Not with Bitcoin. And today I want to show you a Bitcoin pattern which signals a massive bull run that's around the corner. So let's get started. Morning. Welcome. Look at this right now. Bitcoin is at 25.1. So a little bit higher than last night. So that's good, but take a look. Look at the US market right now. Deep in the red. So Bitcoin is moving in the opposite direction right now. And I do believe it's because, well, we have more Credit Suisse fears this morning. In fact, it's looking really bleak for them. Why? Because, well, their biggest backer, which is the Saudi National Bank, they came out and said, no, we're not going to give them any more money. Basically, they're really in trouble. They need a lot of money. Due to bad investments, they have really screwed up their balance sheet. And recently, there's been other things that people have found in their financial report that are troubling. So they went out and reached out to their biggest bank, their biggest helper, so to speak, and they said, no, we're not giving you any more money. So that is why their stock is crashing. This is a representation of how their stock has looked going all the way back to 90s, peaked out a couple times, right? And since then, it's down, and now it's about 97% down from its peak, right? So Credit Suisse is not looking good. It's upsetting the European market, which has crashed, and all the banking stocks, again, have turned weak. Yesterday, we had a really good rally day for banks. Today, it's looking like banks are going to get crushed once again, which is why the U.S. market is not looking so good. You know what? What did I say? Just yesterday, I said, I anticipate there will be more banking weakness, right? Even though the Fed and what the Fed has been doing with the rate hikes affects American banks, but there's repercussions worldwide. Right? All the banks are connected to each other, and economies are connected to each other. All the other central banks are copying each other, right? So we know that everyone overprinted, and now everyone is forced in a situation to raise rates really quickly, right? But when one bank gets weak, another bank gets weak, another bank gets weak. They're all connected. So the banking stocks are taking a beating this morning. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening, in case you're wondering why everything is looking red once again, because banks are looking weak once again. Well, that's good for Bitcoin, right? Because that's why Bitcoin is up 50% this year, beating stocks, gold, and banks. Who are you going to turn to? When you take your money out of the bank, who are you going to turn to, right? Like, where else are you going to park your money? Bitcoin, that's where. But before I get into Bitcoin and this ultra massive bull run pattern, a couple other things came out today, economic news, which are great in regards to this next rate hike that we will be getting next week, or maybe no rate hike. And the reason being, we got a couple more data, economic data. PPI inflation, which measures wholesale prices, went down dramatically. Last month, it was at 5.4% year to year. It was predicted that this month, which I'm referring to February, will drop to 5.2%. No, it went down to 4.4%, a whole percentage drop. That is massive drop, okay? So first of all, that is good. That means prices are coming down from a wholesale side, right? Which means it should translate to retail side. But, if you look at retail side, it's getting weaker. Okay, it was forecasted we're going to get negative 3% growth. we got negative 4%. So that means consumers are also spending less. And what does that mean? Well, prices should be coming down, right? So with these two pieces of data, guess what? Now the prediction for the next rate hike coming up, look at this, has now turned to 64% for zero. What did I just say yesterday? Even though the chart or the prediction was at like 20% and the day before was like 15%. I'm telling you, because of what's happening, inflation data is showing we're going down. Now wholesale data, retail data, right? All showing weakness. Banks collapsing left and right. There's no way Powell is going to stick being hawkish. He's going to turn dovish. He's going to say zero increases for this meeting and possibly saying this might be it. There's no reason why we need to continue because inflation is still going down. The economy is softening or weakening, and we still have a really strong job report, which means that, you know what, we could possibly get that soft landing he was talking about. It could happen. Right? But now, wow. And as we get closer and closer to next week, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think we have any more big economic data or any inflation readings. So that's it. And banks are still having problems. If Credit Suisse goes down before next week, that's going to be solidifying this. This is going to go up to 100%, right? And if the Fed pauses a rate hike, that would be absolutely massive for markets, for U.S. market, for crypto market, for everything. But I know some of you guys are thinking, well, isn't that bad because inflation is still high? Yes. So short term, it's going to be fantastic. Long term, you know, if inflation does not go down, you know, this term entrenched, Powell's like most feared word is entrenched, like inflation becomes entrenched, right? It could be. It could just be that inflation stays high and becomes entrenched forever, right? Hopefully not, but if it happens, what do? Well, you turn to Bitcoin once again, right? You have to hold on to assets that outperform inflation. Otherwise, you just see your buying power disappear right in front of you, okay? You don't want that. You may think holding 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 of cash in your bank is the smartest thing to do. But after 5 years, after 10 years, after 20 years, you realize what you could buy with that money has decreased substantially. That's why you need to hold on things that keeps going up, right? That's why so many people turn to real estate. So many people turn to stocks. People used to turn to gold, no longer. And so many people are turning to Bitcoin because nothing has outperformed Bitcoin in the last 10 years. It's not even close. All right, so with all that said, what about Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin right now is proving that it is decoupling. I mean, the U.S. market is horrible, but this is looking at a European market. It's a little bit hard to read, but this is comparing to the German market, the UK market, and I forgot what the other one is. Just the overall European market. And you can see on the right side, again, I'm sorry for it's hard to read, but all the markets have been falling, but the one that hasn't fallen is Bitcoin. In fact, it's going in reverse right now, right? So Bitcoin, I know it's early, but it's starting to decouple in a good way, right? Mostly because there's a lot of banking fears right now. There's a lot of banking fears that more bank runs will happen, more collapses, and people are turning to Bitcoin. That is fantastic, right? But what about this? I put this on the thumbnail. What is this? Well, this is according to Wyckoff pattern. And a lot of people have started paying attention to Wyckoff pattern because it's a pattern that Wall Street whales, or just whales in general, uses to manipulate the people, manipulate retail investors. It's a pattern specifically designed to fear people out of something. It's been applied to stocks for 100 a year. I don't know about hundreds of years, but at least 100 years. It's a very old pattern. It's a very old pattern. But right now, if you apply it to Bitcoin, it's following it to a dot almost, right? You can see the accumulation stage coming off from bottom, right? You got a breakout. You have a throwback, which means you retouch that breakout point, right? And then what happens afterwards? Well, then you start profiting. That's when things are or things get wild. Let's just put it that way, right? And that's leading up to the next halving event and beyond, right? So if I was going to put like a halving event in here, it'll probably be like somewhere in between the 2 points, the 2 peaks, right? That would probably be a halving event. We have a really good shot of having a really good upswing or peaking out this year, and then we'll probably retrace a little bit. We have seen that with previous cycles. I've shown you guys. I'll show you again, right? And then afterwards, you break out and you continue upwards, right? I don't know if we're going to hit 1 million this next cycle. Unlikely, but eventually we will. We will. But so many people have noticed that Bitcoin, because it's still relatively small, the market cap is still relatively small, right? And those Wall Street guys, those whales got billions and trillions under their, at their disposal. They tend to try to manipulate. But as Bitcoin gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it just becomes harder and harder to do. And Bitcoin is not a U.S. thing. It's a worldwide thing, right? But if this holds true, get ready, because there's many things that point to us having a really good run by mid-year. And especially if more banks fail and the Fed pauses its rate hike, I mean, it's a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm to skyrocket, basically. That's the best way to look at it. Here's another one. A pi cycle indicator is about to cross. The last 2 times, it only happened twice in Bitcoin's history. The last 2 times this happened, very good things happened. In 2015 to 2018, after it crossed, Bitcoin went on an 8,000% run. In 2019 to 2022, it went on a 1,400% run. Okay, so even if we get something lower, even if we get 1,000% run, or even let's just say more conservative, 500% run, it's still gonna be a pretty good run. It's one of those long-term indicators that doesn't happen very often, or long-term signal, I should say, that doesn't happen very often. But these are type of signals you don't want to ignore, because if you do, you'll lose out on 8,000% gain or 1,400% gain. And this is just for Bitcoin. I can't even imagine some of the altcoins. They have gone up like 1,000,000%, or 10,000% or 30,000%, right? Some of the altcoins have exploded during these periods. So exciting time indeed. And you know what? There's a lot of talk about Bitcoin and its energy usage. Now it's proven that Bitcoin is, at least 50% of Bitcoin's usage is using green energy, clean energy, right? Does that mean maybe we'll get an Elon effect? Maybe Elon will open up Bitcoin payments once again for Tesla. And maybe he could start accumulating some Bitcoin on the balance sheet again for Tesla, because he has sold off much in 2022. We'll see. But this green energy debacle or debate continues on, because we still have a lot of states and countries that only think that Bitcoin or thinks Bitcoin is only using dirty energy. But that's not true. Over 52% is clean energy, and that is fantastic. Last point is Ethereum's final testnet upgrade has happened. So now the next one, the Shanghai upgrade, is on track. Although official date for the upgrade has not been given, but it's sometime in April. Basically, everything is set. So this could be a tremendous thing. Once they unleash Shanghai, people will be able to unstake and stake and unstake however many times they want. And it could be a very, very good thing as they continue to become more and more deflationary. So that is very good. All right, so Bitcoin is still holding above 25,000. Looking at the U.S. market right now, still absolutely horrible. Minus 400 for Dow, minus 100 for NASDAQ. Credit Suisse is falling like a rock, right? Overall, not a good day for markets or banks, but it's a good day for Bitcoin. All right, let's do some Q&A. Let me scroll up here. Calgary says Fed needs to pivot, cut 50 basis point. I don't think this is the time to be cutting. Just simply stopping and saying this is it. That's all that's needed. We don't actually need to cut. But this probability has been going up. Well, now it flipped from 60-something to 50%. I still think that it's going to be zero. But what's more bullish is if he says zero and then he's like, that's it. We're at 4.5%. We don't need to go to 5%. We don't need to go to 6%, right? That would be very positive. Will Bitcoin hit 150K this run? I think there's a really, really good chance it could hit 150. I don't know where Bitcoin's going to top out, 200, 250, right? But I think 150 is certainly possible. Seeing how we hit 70K, in November of 2021, we're going to break that. We're going to break 100. I think 150 is realistic. Let's see. Overall market cap down a little bit. Yesterday was 1.1. Could Aptos be a ETH killer? It could, but it's still not sold. I'm still not completely sold on Aptos. A lot of things are labeled ETH killers, and so far none of them have gotten any close. Besides BNB. BNB got close. At one point in time, there was only a 2-to-1 ratio. Now it has widened, but at one point in time it was close, but that's it. Best metal key storage. You could just create your own, right? Just get a piece of aluminum and just get a stamping kit and just stamp your private key on there or a recovery phrase. It's the same thing. I know there's a few companies that produce it, but I mean, if you wanted to, you could just create your own. I can't pronounce your name from Berlin, but yes, yes, I am. Peter, Peter Post. Yeah, I said I was gonna do a carnivore diet for a month, and I did. And why did I stop? Because I enjoy eating vegetables. That's why. So I'm more or less on keto now than carnivore. Carnivore is just too hard for me. I can't do it. Um, not being able to eat any vegetables is a killer. So, um, did you hear that statistical Tesla autopilot is about 6 times safer than regular driver? What are your thoughts? I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's true. Um, there's a lot of horrible drivers out there. There's a lot of instances, had I not intervened, some stupid driver would have hit me. I would have been in like 10 accidents by now, right? And I'm sure if you had all the cars running on autopilot, it'll probably be safer. But, you don't know. It's not just about quantity, it's about quality, I guess, right? There are certain crashes that's worse than others. The problem is when you have a crash with the autopilot, it's not a human. It doesn't know how to react sometimes. So that's why sometimes those crashes are fatal, where, these dumb drivers, if they hit each other, well, that's like a fender bender, right? It's not fatal. So, I mean, you got to take these stats with a grain of salt. I just know FSD is nowhere close of fully autonomous driving. I've tested it on my Tesla. It's nowhere close. I would not trust it. I would not trust it at all. Hoger, I appreciate it. Tattoo your keys on your body. That would be the worst thing ever. you know, I think that would be a really bad idea. Did you see Argentina has passed 100% inflation mark? I didn't see it, but I don't doubt it. I mean, there's a lot of countries in the U.S. Yes, we have inflation problems in the U.K., Australia, Canada. We all have inflation problems, but this is nothing, or they are nothing compared to Argentina or Turkey or Nigeria or any of these other developing countries or third world countries where they're suffering from hyperinflation. I mean, it's happening around the world. We tend to ignore it or we don't pay attention, right? But inflation is real. It's always been, and it's worse for countries that, that are not as financially strong as, say the US or UK or some of these other countries, right? And for those citizens, they suffer. What can they do? When your own banks and money is failing you, what do you do? That's why so many turn to Bitcoin. So many turn to Bitcoin because that's the only thing they could do is turn to Bitcoin. Coco, welcome. Remember when I told you I saw 50 basis point from a mile away last week? I think I remember you saying that. I said, hey, there's a lot of other things um, that could develop, right? So I think the biggest one, before the banks all started crashing, the biggest one I was looking at um, was the CPI, right? CPI reading, and it showed inflation is still going down. Today's PPI inflation also shows it going down, right? These things alone would probably take the 50 basis points away. But with the banks, I think it's going to be zero. Poland is at 17. Yeah. There's a lot of countries that suffer a lot of inflation. They're putting GPS trackers on meat packets in Canada. What's that about, Carl? That would be perfect for VeChain. VeChain already has that. VeChain has these like RFID barcodes that they have put on. I think they do it in Walmart in China. That you can verify, how fresh the food is and whether or not, like baby food, for example, has been tampered with, whether something is counterfeit. I mean, that already operates with VeChain in China. I don't know about anywhere else. Joel, you can find out about my house on my other channel. I am George. Um, how and when will you take profits? I've answered this already. It's based on your cash holdings. It's that simple. Make sure you keep your cash at 20, 25, 30% of your portfolio. That's it. It's as easy as that. If the market starts going up, which it has been, and your cash pile starts shrinking, sell off and make sure your cash pile is always at that point. I would say 25% would be a good mark, but if you want to be more conservative, 30% or 35%, it's up to you. If you want to be a little greedy, maybe 15%, 10% cash, just make sure that cash percentage doesn't change. It's a really easy way. How do you leave private keys for a child in a will safely? There's no 100% guarantee that they will get it, but if you leave it with a trustworthy custodian, and the custodian doesn't even know, right? You're just saying that, hey, I want to give this USB key to them, so they're go hold it, they go pass it on, and then just make sure in that USB key you have instructions or whatever to access your recovery phrase. That's the only way I could think of. There's some crypto projects that allow you to do that. They'll automatically do it, but I would not trust them. Like, you don't know if they're gonna be around, in 10 years. So interesting fact for you guys: safe deposit boxes are not covered with FDIC insurance. Just keep that in mind. If a bank goes under, the safe deposit boxes, they're not covered. Okay, so I don't know what they do with them. I'm assuming they contact the owners, but if they don't get a hold of you or whatever, I'm assuming they just throw it away. So make sure if you have something valuable like your recovery phrase in a safe deposit box, that you're choosing a really, really good bank that's not going to just disappear, and that won't have like a fire or a flood or something like that, because safe deposit boxes are not insured. Chi to fit. What do you think about Chile's surprise all-time highs? I don't know what you mean by that. Like, what surprise? I mean, they have a lot of sports teams, all the American ones, but they can't do anything like what they have done before with football teams in Europe. They can't come out tokens because they're all seen as securities, right? So the only problem with Chili's that concerns me a bit is everything they do is considered really a security. So of course, they transitioned themselves into more like a rewards thing. They're gonna come out with NFTs, which would be great, right? But they can't do the same thing in America they have done before. That's why you can't even the Sophos app, right? Sophios, whatever they call it. You can't even use it in the U.S. And a lot of exchanges don't support Chili's for that reason. Peter Post, I already answered you. Because I want to eat vegetables. That's why. I wanted to give it a try, and then I stopped because I want to eat vegetables. See, I'm sure so many people have died from various diets, not just carnivore. I'm pretty sure the creator of Atkins died from a heart attack. I mean, there's a lot. The creator of Segway fell off his own Segway off a mountain, right? You know, sometimes bad things happen. Do you think graph tokens a buy? I think so. I like better projects out there, but the graph is pretty important. It got pushed up because it got labeled as like an AI play. It's really not. It has nothing to do with AI, but it does help index data and help projects create APIs with them. European banks plunge on the stock market now. Do you have any idea what may happen if it goes like 2008? Well, it would be financial destruction. But this time around, Bitcoin is around. What is this? Home builders say demand is rising, but they're concerned about a banking fallout, which means they're afraid that banks are going to fail and they're not going to get their money. That's what it sounds like. Yeah. The industry is watching recent instability in the banking system. It would be awesome if you could buy a house with Bitcoin in the future, but not yet. But in the future, it'll happen. I mean, see, it looks like everyone's afraid of the banking sector, right? This is, again, I'll remind you guys, this is the reason why Bitcoin was created. People coming in might not realize that, but Bitcoin was created in 2009 after the last financial destruction where all the banks got bailed out. Had they not been bailed out, you know, the world would be very different today. Everything would have crashed and burned. And, you know, you had someone or a group of people, Satoshi Nakamoto, say, hey, that's enough. We're going to create something that's better for the people, right? That does not rely on any legacy financial systems. And that's why Bitcoin is created. So this time around, if we do have something else, right, I think more banks that go under, the more it's going to help Bitcoin and strengthen its case. We saw that recently. I think we're going to see more of that. I think there's going to be a lot more banks to go under. And the Fed is already bailing people out, but in other countries, they may not be bailed out, right? So SV Bank got bailed out. Signature got bailed out. First Republic Bank got bailed out. There's a lot that got bailed out. But other countries, I don't know if Switzerland's going to bail out Credit Suisse. You know, if they go under, I don't know if they're going to get bailed out. And if they go under, many, many other banks are going to go under in Europe. That's for sure. So it's time for Bitcoin to shine. It's looking like Credit Suisse is bad. It looks like it's a situation they can't fix unless they get a huge bailout. They asked for more money from their biggest banking investor partner, the Saudi National Bank, and they said no. And that's bad. That means they need money. They need another injection, and they're not going to get it. Jack, the whole point is not to get back in USD to spend. The whole point is just to keep it in Bitcoin forever and spend Bitcoin directly, right? We have some projects that allow that already. We have some companies and websites that already allow you to purchase things with Bitcoin. Still very scarce, but it's growing. The whole point is eventually to get off of USD reliance, not to always convert back to USD. No, the point is to just keep everything and spend sats eventually, right? So focus on that. Focus on that. All right, guys, let's call it a day. Today is looking pretty bad overall. U.S. market, European markets, every market is struggling because Credit Suisse looks like they may be going under, right? But Bitcoin's not struggling. Bitcoin is still holding at 25. Bitcoin is the way. The more banks that fail, the more it's going to strengthen Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin was created as a hedge against banks, as a hedge against inflation, as a hedge against the government and central banks around the world, right? So stay strong, my friends. Stay focused. And I'll see you guys tonight, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right? Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.